My name is Amanda, and I currently live with my in-laws Ben and Susan.
Can't you even clean properly? Having a young wife with no common sense is just a burden on us.
Susan says things like this from morning till night every day. At first, she would pretend to talk to herself, but made sure I could hear it. Lately, she says it right to my face without hesitation.
You really are useless.
My sister-in-law, Jessica, is just the same. She bullies me with the same face and tone as Susan. She wasn't like this before we got married. Before we got married, both Susan and Jessica told me, "From now on, we'll be family, so don't hesitate to say anything." That's right. I'm so happy to have a new sister. I have no parents. Both of them passed away in an accident when I was 5 years old, and I was placed in an orphanage before being adopted. My adoptive mother was very kind and raised me without any difficulties, but I still felt a hollow inside me that couldn't be filled. Even when I reached 21, that feeling didn't change. I began to think that maybe I couldn't understand what love was, that I might be missing something important. That's why I started thinking I shouldn't get married. But then I met Jack, and for the first time, I felt something warm inside me. So when Susan and Jessica spoke kind words to me, I thought maybe I could fill the void in my heart by being with them. I had no hesitation about living together. But from the moment we started living together, everything changed. Susan and Jessica began treating me like a maid, speaking to me harshly. Of course, I tried to talk to Jack about it several times.
Mom and Jessica don't mean any harm. You're just a bit too negative, so you take it the wrong way. You need to be more positive like Mom and Jessica.
He just said the usual lines. From an outsider's perspective, being passive and crying all the time like me must seem frustrating. It's not like Susan and Jessica are superior to me, so it's better to snap back at them for my own good. I thought so too. Someone with a strong will would have snapped back sooner, and someone smart would have found a solution. But since childhood, I've had a habit of reading adults' moods, and when they scolded me, I would shrink back. Maybe it's because of my upbringing, but I always feared being disliked and kicked out, so I swallow my frustration even when it's unfair. But it doesn't mean I can tolerate it. I just keep bottling it up, becoming more and more bitter. It frustrates me, but changing is difficult. My heart was close to breaking just 6 months after our wedding. It's obvious that just worrying won't solve anything, and the actions of Susan and Jessica were escalating day by day. Then one day, Jack's younger sister Emma came home to visit. She's much younger than Jack, and despite her cute appearance, she's straightforward and has a good heart. She's kind to me too. But Jack and Jessica seem uncomfortable around her. Amanda, you've lost some weight. Did Mom and Jessica say something mean to you again? When I gave a forced smile to Jessica, she said, "What are you talking about? What do we ever do to you?" Well, both you and Mom have always been like that. You act nice in front of my brother, but you're just nasty behind his back. My brother is clueless, so I get worried. Mind your own business. I'm just trying to educate you as your older sister. Wow, how condescending. By the way, are you still unemployed? I just haven't found a job that matches my abilities. Feeling attacked, Jessica's face turned red and she stormed off to her room. Jessica has been jobless since she graduated from college. She helps with housework, but she doesn't actually do much. Occasionally, she works at the same place as Susan's part-time job, but it's only once or twice a month, so it's not really work. On the other hand, Emma has lived on her own since college and now works for a top company. I'm sorry, but from the way Jessica just acted now, I can guess what's going on in this house. Don't worry, I'm staying here tonight, so I'll handle them. What do you mean, handle them? Don't worry. Jack is working late tonight, so dinner is just me, Susan, Jessica, and Emma, making for an awkward situation. As usual, Susan and Jessica started bullying me during dinner. You still can't make anything decent, can you? When are you going to learn our family's taste? If Dad was here, he'd say he couldn't eat such awful food. Poor Jack marrying a wife like this. You didn't grow up with your mother's cooking, so this is the best you can do. At that moment, Emma, who had been quietly eating beside me, spoke up. Our family's taste was mostly instant or store-bought food, though. Dad never complained and he never lost his temper over it. What are you talking about? You left this family, so stay out of it. It's because you've never had a proper job. That's not relevant now. What's your problem? I'm just trying to teach Amanda who can't even clean properly. How can you complain about cleaning when your room is a mess? It must be because you've never had a proper job. Maybe that's why you push all the housework onto Amanda and then complain about it. Enough! You've always been so mouthy. I don't care about your complaints. While Emma calmly repeated the same words, the two of them were furious, their faces red with anger. Get out! Talking to you is driving me crazy. Seriously, every time you come home, you just stir up trouble. How dare you take her side over your own family? That's because I'm the one who works, pays taxes, and takes care of myself. And I don't go around being mean to people just because I don't like them. As Susan and Jessica were shouting, Jack came home looking bewildered by the tense atmosphere at the dinner table. Oh, Emma, you're back. Jack, listen to me. Emma blocked her path as she rushed toward Jack and stood in front of him. What's up, Emma? Hey, Jack, have you really not noticed what these two are doing to Amanda? What are you talking about? How could you not see that your wife is getting skinnier and skinnier? I mean... Don't say things like that. As Jessica yelled from the side, Emma briefly glared at her before turning back to Jack with a stern look. Were you just ignoring it? You can't say you didn't notice. You've always been like that. You saw Mom giving things only to Jessica and nothing to me. You saw the other nasty things she did too, but you never said anything because it was easier that way. You think what these two are doing to Amanda is just a squabble between women? It's not. But Mom and Jessica, they're just looking out for Amanda. Really? If you don't believe me, listen to this. With that, Emma held up her phone in front of her brother's face. The phone played a recording of Susan and Jessica bullying me earlier that day. What is this? How dare you record us? Without proof, nothing can be done. Listen to this, Jack. This is what they said to Amanda. This is what your beloved mom and sister have been doing to your wife. Jack was stunned as he listened, and Emma turned to me and said, I'll talk to them tonight alone, so please stay at my place tonight. I'll contact you in the morning. I hesitated, but she reassured me. Don't worry. The one who I really need to talk to is my brother. If he had faced you properly from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Emma gently guided me outside, shielding me from Susan and Jessica's angry glares, and put me in a taxi. While I was grateful to her, I also felt ashamed of myself for being so powerless. The next day, I'm sorry about last night. Did you sleep well? Everything is fine now. My stupid brother is completely devastated, but I gave him a good scolding. From now on, if anything happens, come to me immediately. When I returned to my in-laws' house, Susan and Jessica were waiting for me at the door, looking furious. How dare you humiliate us? That's right. Being disowned by my own sister is the ultimate insult, and it's all your fault. But Jack is still on our side. Jack was so angry this morning before he left for work that he said he wouldn't forgive you. Their anger was even more intense than the day before, and the little hope I had quickly turned to fear. Come with us. They grabbed my arms, dragged me inside, and threw me to the center of the room. Look! As Susan instructed, I looked at the table and saw a divorce paper lying there. We downloaded it this morning. Jack's part is already filled out, so sign it now. Is this really filled out by Jack himself? Of course! We don't need a wife who's so rebellious. My daughter and I both agree on that. Last night, I just pretended to listen to Emma because it was too much trouble to argue, but no matter how I think about it, I'm not satisfied. Was Jack really okay with this? Did he really sign this himself? My mind was a mess, and I couldn't even recall what his handwriting looked like. Why are you hesitating? Hurry up and sign it! And don't expect any alimony. You're useless and humiliated us by using Emma against us. If anything, we should be asking for compensation. That's right. We'll let you off the hook if you just sign the papers and cut ties with Jack. I'll call Jack and confirm this. I finally managed to force the words out, reaching into my bag for my phone, but Jessica quickly snatched it away. Didn't I tell you? Jack feels the same way as we do, so there's no need to confirm anything. Just sign it already. Jessica forcibly pressed a pen into my hand and pushed it onto the divorce paper. With them on either side of me, I had no choice but to sign my part with trembling hands. Well done. Let's go submit it right away. Get up. They forcefully pushed me into a taxi they had waiting and took me to the town hall where they made me submit the divorce papers in front of them. Finally, we're officially done with you. What a relief. Now the three of us can live happily together. By the way, you don't have a home to go back to, do you? Because you're an orphan. But that's not our problem. After all, orphans are hopeless. No manners, no common sense. It was a complete waste of time living with you, but at least we're done with you now. Really, orphans are just good for nothing. Too bad you have nowhere to go, but we'll take care of your belongings, don't worry. As their laughter faded away, I stood in front of the town hall, stunned. When I came to my senses, I realized with horror that I had actually submitted the divorce papers. Jessica took my phone. What should I do? Then suddenly, a number I had memorized popped into my head, and I hurried to a payphone, dialing with trembling fingers. The moment I heard the voice on the other end, tears started pouring down uncontrollably. The person on the phone told me to stay where I was, and about 10 minutes later, a car pulled up in front of me.
Amanda! Amanda!
The people who got out of the car were my adoptive parents. The moment I saw Emily's face, I clung to her and burst into tears. As we drove, I explained everything to them, and Emily scolded me for not contacting them sooner, but her voice was gentle and their hands on my shoulders were warm.
We can't let this go. It's our turn to step in.
Yes, indeed. They made a phone call and then said, "Let's go," as they drove off, heading straight to my in-laws' house. Don't worry, just be confident. We're here for you. I was frozen with fear, unable to move, but Emily gently patted my back as we rang the doorbell at the in-laws' house. As soon as Brian opened the door, Jack came running, falling to his knees, apologizing to Brian.
I'm so sorry.
What are you doing? Yeah, what's going on?
Quiet.
As Susan and Jessica raised their voices, Jack silenced them, explaining that these were my adoptive parents.
These are Amanda's parents.
So what? Apologizing to your wife's parents on your knees? How pathetic.
Silence. These are not just any parents. This man is the president of the company I work for and the largest landowner in this area.
What? No way. Jack's words caused them to lose their composure. My adoptive father is indeed the president of the company where Jack works, and his word alone could easily cost Jack his job. He also owns most of the land in the area, including the land where my in-laws' house stands. This can't be true.
I told you when we got married. Didn't you listen? Of course my dad knew. Of course. I'm sorry, Jack, for having to pull you out of work. I asked your boss to send you home so we could talk. Yes, of course. This is about what my mom and sister have done to Amanda, right? I was planning to talk to you about it today. Today? Didn't your mom tell you what happened this morning? No. This morning? What are you saying?
Anyway, you all need to leave now. Susan and Jessica, suddenly realizing that they had been caught, tried to kick us out, but Emma appeared. I'm sorry I'm late.
Emma, what are you doing here?
As Susan and Jessica became even more frantic, Emma greeted Brian.
It's okay. I'm sorry to call you out for something like this. But my daughter told me that you were the only one who stood up for her, so I wanted to hear your side of the story.
Yes, sir.
Now, Jack, we shouldn't be discussing this in the entrance. Sorry for the intrusion, but may we come in?
Jack quickly invited us inside despite Susan and Jessica's protests and led us to the living room.
I'm truly sorry for my mother and sister's behavior, and I'm ashamed of myself as well. I promise to protect Amanda from now on.
As Jack apologized profusely, Brian and I exchanged puzzled looks.
Jack, do you really not know what happened this morning? What do you mean?
Now's not the time to discuss that. Susan and Jessica tried to interrupt and change the subject, but Brian silenced them.
This morning, your mother and sister forced my daughter to sign the divorce papers and submit them to the town hall.
What? Jack and Emma were both wide-eyed with shock. It seems like not only Emma, but even my husband really had no idea.
Is that true?
No, it's not like that. It was just a joke to teach her a lesson. Yeah, Amanda just signed and submitted on her own.
Enough! You did make her submit it, didn't you?
His sharp glare finally silenced them.
How could you? After everything I told you.
Tears welled up in Jack's eyes, and as he met my gaze, he looked down and clenched his fists.
After Emma called me out yesterday, I felt so ashamed of myself for not protecting my wife. I was planning to apologize to Amanda and leave this house to start over as a couple. Even when Brian called me today, I was ready to apologize and beg to start over, even if he told me it was for a divorce, because I truly love Amanda. But why? Why did you do something like that?
You've got it all wrong. I was just thinking of you. Yeah, that's right. Why are you crying? Isn't this a bit much? Susan and Jessica tried to make excuses, but Jack wouldn't even look at them. Mom? Sis? You didn't know who Amanda's parents were, did you? I thought you did and were still bullying her. I was beginning to admire your audacity. Oh, and by admire, I mean I was disgusted. You both know where I work, right? It's one of Brian's companies. But I guess Mom never really cared, and Sis, well, you've never had a job, so I guess you wouldn't know. You knew about her background, didn't you? So that's why you've been pretending to be on her side, you sneaky little thing, trying to win over her parents. What are you talking about? Amanda's background and her parents have nothing to do with this. It's your rotten personalities that made me side with Amanda. If you had known about her background, you wouldn't have treated her so badly.
So, what will you do now? The divorce papers have already been processed.
Jack looked up.
I don't want to divorce Amanda. I meant every word I said earlier. I love her with all my heart. I have no intention of using my power to control your future. Today, I wanted to talk to you as Amanda's parent. Jack, are you telling the truth? Yes, absolutely. Then, are you willing to cut ties with your mother and sister to protect my daughter? Yes.
Cut ties? You're going to abandon us? Yeah, why would you do that? Even if you're family, it's still cruel coming from a parent who isn't your own flesh and blood.
Enough!
Jack stood up, yelling at them, and firmly told Brian, I will protect Amanda.
I see. I understand how you feel. Amanda, what do you want to do?
I was happy to hear Jack's words, but I couldn't respond right away.
My daughter is in shock from everything that has happened, so she can't answer right now. Jack, if you meant what you said, come to our house tonight. Then we can talk. Understood.
Emily supported me as we left my in-laws' house. Why didn't you come to us sooner? You always keep your feelings bottled up and don't express your true thoughts. I understand you don't want to worry us, but we're your parents. It doesn't matter if we're your biological parents or not. My adoptive parents truly care for me, and I knew that since I was a child. Yet, deep down, I still felt like they were strangers, and I feared being abandoned if I upset them. I completely overlooked the love right in front of me and got caught up in thinking I was some tragic heroine daydreaming about Jack's family instead. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad. When they came to get me, I felt like all the emotions I'd been holding back suddenly burst out. I realized that my heart had been filled long ago, but I had just made the emptiness grow on my own. It was all because of my own weakness. It's okay, sweetheart. But don't forget, no matter what anyone says, we're family, okay? Mom. I cried in her arms like a child. After that, Jack truly cut ties with his family and became part of mine. Susan and Jessica were furious and kept trying to come to our house, but they were repeatedly turned away by the police. Eventually, they were arrested after breaking a window on our terrace to try and get in. With no one to bail them out, they're likely to stay in prison for a while. Amanda, I'm really sorry for everything that happened, but please don't misunderstand. I didn't treat you the way I did because of your family background. I was just furious at how my mom and Jessica were treating you. It might sound insincere coming from me, her child, but I wanted you to know. I understand, Emma. If you hadn't been there, I would have given up, and I would have divorced Jack. Anyone who doubts someone like you will have to face the consequences. I'm truly grateful to you. Thank you. Thanks to my father's support, Emma's work wasn't affected by what happened with Susan and Jessica. She continues to work hard and shine even brighter. We sometimes meet for coffee and have become good friends. Recently, I've been influenced by her and have started to express my opinions more. She's my hero, the one who woke up Jack.
Amanda, if anything happens, just tell me, okay? I've been working out lately.
He said this with a big smile, holding up a bodybuilding DVD, and I couldn't help but laugh. Jack is a bit naive and maybe even a bit off, but that's what I love about him. His smile warmed my heart. Just as he promised my father, he's been kind and attentive to me, and he listens when I talk. Even when Susan and Jessica kept coming to our house, he stood firm and protected me. After they were arrested, we moved into a small apartment and finally started living our married life together. Now we're enjoying our newlywed life. I no longer call my adoptive parents foster parents. I call them my real mom and dad. I want to give back the love they've shown me, little by little. I'm truly grateful for the happiness I have now.
Brother-in-law, a single father, take care of my child for a week. Mother-in-law said, I'll leave it to you.
I'm being paid $5 a day for this. Maddie is 3 years old and still isn't trained to use a potty. My brother-in-law, who recently got divorced, keeps dropping her off here without asking. Well, I guess getting paid is better than nothing, but now even my mother-in-law is acting weird. Suddenly, she decides to leave me alone with Maddie for a whole week and then disappears. Please, Maddie, don't cry. Honestly, I'm the one who feels like crying. The only thing that's exploding around here is the volcano on the news. I'm Jane Adams. I've been married to my husband for 2 years now. We're currently living in an owned apartment with my mother-in-law. We don't have kids, mainly because my husband is working abroad. Right after we moved in with his mom, he got sent overseas for work. He's a talented architect and is currently working on projects in Europe. He comes back occasionally, and it's nice to hear his stories, but I really want kids. I want a boy. I grew up in a family full of women, and I'm tired of all the friendly, hostile behavior. But dealing with family is one thing. Figuring out my mother-in-law is a whole different challenge. She's the type who loves gossiping. She's also quite overweight, and let's just say her intentions are as dark as they come. Ever since she got divorced a few years ago, she's gotten worse. Oh, Jane, you look so slim today. She always throws that line at me. I come from a skinny family. I'm practically skin and bones, which is one of my insecurities. My mother-in-law knows this, yet she keeps making those comments. She's smiling, but her eyes definitely aren't. It's pure jealousy and evil. I sometimes wonder why I'm stuck living alone with my mother-in-law. The only thing that keeps me sane is our cat, Sasha. Technically, he's my husband's cat, but he's finally liked me. There's something so calm about burying my face in his fluffy fur. Sasha doesn't look too excited, but he tolerates it. Don't give me that look. You miss him too, right? I wonder what my husband is up to. Probably swinging a hammer around somewhere. But you know, it's tough when someone just dumps their problems on you. I get it. I really do. My husband's brother John, who recently became a single dad, keeps leaving his daughter with us. He's always working late, so he just leaves Maddie here without asking. He usually leaves her off at the daycare during the day, but now he's working late and needs us to watch her. And he's offering $5 a day for it. Of course, they only tell me this after the fact. I can't exactly say no, and honestly, at least I'm getting paid. With this family, they might have just left her with me for free. My mother-in-law absolutely spoils her son, John. And since I work from home as a freelance writer, it's convenient for them. But now that Maddie's here, it's just me, my mother-in-law, Maddie, and the cat. Maddie's usual daycare is too far away, so when she's here, I have to watch her the whole time. And the fact that she's not yet trained to use a potty is a bit of a challenge. She's quiet though, and just stares at me like she's trying to figure me out before running after Sasha. She's got this tiny little bag. It's cute, but still, I'm confused. My mother-in-law is watching me. Oh, is it time for lunch? I wonder how she'll react if I just serve fries. I'm standing in the kitchen with an apron on, staring into the fridge. Should I just make spaghetti again? Sasha is meowing. The deadline for my work is coming up. Jane, can you change Maddie's diaper? Does she really not see doing it herself as an option? I can only sigh. Another sigh escaped me as I dealt with Maddie before lunch. I felt like I wanted to change my mother-in-law's way of thinking too. One day, while I was working on my computer, my mother-in-law suddenly opened the door without knocking. My heart almost jumped out of my chest. Does privacy not exist for this woman? What's wrong, Mother? I'm going out for tea with Mrs. Helen, so take care of everything here. Mrs. Helen is a kind elderly neighbor who I know as well. She's always considerate when we meet. Oh, is that so? Fine, just go and leave me alone already. After closing the door, I sipped on my cold coffee and returned to my computer. Several hours passed as I worked, and suddenly I realized I was starving. It was already past 1 p.m. When I left my room, Sasha greeted me with a meow. I thought maybe I'll just have some fries for lunch, but then as I walked into the kitchen, I was shocked. Maddie was crouched on the floor. I had no idea she was even here. When did she arrive? How long has she been here without making a sound? Maddie looked up at me sleepily as she stood up, and that's when the smell hit me. Her diaper was completely full. When did you get here? Maddie just shook her head. Her diaper was in a terrible state. After changing her, I started preparing lunch. She must have been hungry for a while. Even though she's usually so quiet, it's strange how she doesn't make a single sound. I can't help but worry about what life is like for her and John. I decided to skip the fries and thought maybe I'd make some rice instead. But just as I was about to start, I heard a strange noise coming from the living room. I had a bad feeling. Maddie had thrown up all over the carpet. She had a high fever. I rushed her to the hospital, but of course, the waiting room was packed. I nervously called my mother-in-law, and she casually said, "Kids get fevers all the time. She'll be fine." I was shocked at how little my mother-in-law and John seemed to care. When I asked, they both admitted they knew she had a fever before sending her over. What kind of people are they, and why didn't they tell me? Lunch was out of the question at this point. We waited 2 hours for her to be seen by a doctor. Once we got home, I gave Maddie her medicine, and after an hour, she finally slept. I cleaned the carpet and was taking a break when my mother-in-law returned. There's something so peaceful about watching a child sleep, isn't there? I can't believe she said that. I don't even have the energy to argue. What's for dinner? I should just give her some fries. Wait, I think I forgot to eat lunch. But if I order delivery, it's too expensive and they'll probably complain. Maybe I'll just make rice again. Sasha is staring at me, clearly unhappy. Oh, did I forget to feed you too? Sorry, I'm really hungry as well. The reason John and my mother-in-law didn't live together was because of his ex-wife, Karen. Karen was a career woman, just like my mother-in-law. John and Karen met at work, where she was his boss. I don't know how they started dating, and honestly, I don't care. Karen only had a child because my mother-in-law pressured her to. But Karen hated being on maternity leave. She was itching to get back to work, so she returned as soon as possible and put Maddie in daycare. That's when John, who's notoriously cheap, started fighting with Karen over the daycare costs. John is the classic head of the family type, so the arguments got intense after they had a child. I heard John even yelled, "Taking care of the kid is a woman's job." Did he forget she was his boss? Honestly, I feel like siding with Karen. She only had a child because my mother-in-law pushed her into it, and then she got divorced because she didn't want the trouble. It's incredibly irresponsible, but I can kind of understand where she's coming from. While I sympathize with Karen, I'm also stuck dealing with the consequences. But the one I feel truly sorry for is Maddie. It's not fair to treat her like a burden. My mother-in-law insists on taking Maddie, but she never actually takes care of her, so all the responsibility falls on me. John often doesn't even come to pick up Maddie, so we end up taking care of her for days. When my mother-in-law does give me money, it's only $5 out of the $20 she gets from John. Where did the other $15 go? When I asked her, she said, that's my share. I really want to spend an hour just questioning her reasoning. They're such a stingy family. My mother-in-law's pension never gets used for our household expenses. She clings to her money like it's her lifeline. I wish my husband would come home soon and put an end to this. Maddie, holding her worn-out stuffed bunny, looked sadly out the window. Poor Maddie. This environment isn't good for her, but I don't know what to do. I want to talk to my husband about it, but I don't want to do it over the phone. I tried to find comfort in petting Sasha, who came over seeking attention. Don't look so annoyed, Sasha. Just as I was trying to find a moment of peace, John showed up at our door again with Maddie. It was a Sunday.
Please take care of her as I'm going for a business trip.
Maddie held her torn bunny, looking apologetic. She had a small bag with a change of clothes, but no extra diapers. John didn't say when he'd be back to pick her up. I hope we have enough supplies to last until then. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law was preoccupied on her phone, texting her friend Helen. Despite how much she wanted a grandchild, she seems indifferent to Maddie. Maybe she was hoping for a grandson instead. Maybe I should start potty training Maddie. Sunday was smooth since nothing major happened, but I'm questioning how my mother-in-law treats Maddie. She controls the TV and only watches what she likes. In the end, all I can do is let Maddie watch YouTube on my phone. My mother-in-law goes out alone, buys snacks she likes, and eats them while watching dramas. I don't want to fight, so I can't say anything. She's very selfish. Maddie sleeps curled up quietly on the bed. She's such a quiet kid, probably because she's trying not to bother us. On Wednesday, I have an interview scheduled, so I'll need to leave Maddie with my mother-in-law. I've told her in advance, so it should be fine. But I have a bad feeling about this. On Monday, my mother-in-law was out all day having tea with Mrs. Helen, and didn't come back until dinner. On Tuesday, she was out with Mrs. Mercy until dinner. On Wednesday, she casually mentioned that she was going on a date with Mrs. Mercy and left without a word about my interview. I had no choice but to take Maddie to daycare. It wasn't her usual daycare because it was too far, so I had to send her to a new one. I'm sorry, Maddie. I'll pick you up as soon as I can. The daycare worker said Maddie played alone with her stuffed toy the whole time. It makes me feel uneasy. I don't want to make her feel like this. On Thursday, my mother-in-law didn't come home and I was about to lose it. I took Maddie out with me because I couldn't get any work done. Even at the zoo, she looked sad with her head down. Why do you look so sad, Maddie? On Friday, I tried potty training, but Maddie had an accident. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. We ran out of diapers, so I had to go shopping with Maddie. The cashier assumed we were mother and daughter.
Shopping with your mother, huh?
She's not my mother, she's my aunt. It made me feel complicated. I made a hamburger for dinner, something kids usually like. How is it? It's good. She nodded silently, which made me feel even sadder. On Saturday, my mother-in-law finally came back. She said she had gone to L.A. Is she serious? Maddie's still here? Maddie's face wrinkled at my mother-in-law's insensitive words. I stared at my mother-in-law, but she didn't seem to care. She's unbelievable. On Sunday, John came to the apartment and Maddie's face lit up.
Can you take care of Maddie for a bit longer?
What a cruel thing to say. I was about to lose it.
I'm sorry, Maddie. It's because of work.
Maddie curled up in a corner of the living room. Sasha tried to comfort her. Please, come back soon. Don't worry, Jane can handle it. I was on the edge of exploding. On Monday, my mother-in-law was out all day again with Mrs. Helen, not coming back until dinner. I was already frustrated because of work, and when Maddie spilled milk, I busted and yelled at her. I'm sorry. On Tuesday, my mother-in-law was out again with Mrs. Pauline until dinner. I finally called John. Maddie's feeling miserable.
It's because of work, okay? I'll give you some extra money, so it's fine.
It's not about the money. Maddie's really suffering. He hung up on me mid-sentence. Maddie, who had been listening, looked even sadder. Maddie started crying. "Please don't cry," I said. I ended up crying along with Maddie. I've managed to deal with my mother-in-law up until now without complaining. I can't take it anymore. Exhausted from crying, Maddie fell asleep peacefully on my bed. For her sake, I braced myself and opened my phone's contact list. I tapped the name with my finger, leaving a mark. My mother-in-law and John were sitting in the living room with pale faces, sitting upright like statues. The person who looked like a demon was actually the ex-husband of my mother-in-law. He was completely helpless.
"What are you two doing?"
His voice echoed heavily in our living room. Maddie, who was sitting next to me, looked up at this grandfather. They divorced when Maddie was about 1 year old, so she doesn't understand the situation or influence. I'll explain. This grandfather was a former police officer.
"You are living a good life, leaving your child and grandchild to our daughter-in-law and going out on his own."
The sight of them shaking with fear is satisfying. "You don't have a say in this," my mother-in-law argued back.
"How dare you speak to me like that? You, who had an affair."
My mother-in-law's face was as pale as a corpse. The reason she was abandoned was because of that. My mother-in-law was the only daughter of the Salvatore family, so my father-in-law left because he was too busy as a police officer. He was often away from home, and my mother-in-law took advantage of that to have affairs. Even during our wedding preparations, she was still having affairs, relying on the police pension. My father-in-law got tired and left. My father-in-law's voice made John almost fall over.
"I've heard about your affairs too."
John was sweating a lot. The business trips he mentioned were lies. I called my ex-sister-in-law, Karen, who checked John's schedule easily. John's colleagues revealed his affair. "He's a womanizer. How many can he have?" Karen was too shocked to speak. John kept cheating because he couldn't stand Karen's strict management. The main reason for the divorce was this. I checked with my mother-in-law's tea-drinking friend, Helen, and she confirmed that the current boyfriends of my mother-in-law are Paul and Caleb. It's not a problem for her to have boyfriends since she's divorced, but pushing Maddie off and going on a trip to LA is inexcusable. I'm filled with disrespect. I don't know how much my mother-in-law and John rejoiced when my ex-father-in-law left. John disliked my ex-father-in-law, and my mother-in-law thought affairs were no big deal. But when my ex-father-in-law got angry, their legs would shake. My ex-father-in-law had always been in control. My husband took his mother because they lived in an apartment with no family home, so my mother-in-law had nowhere to go. My dear husband, but I can't take this situation anymore. Do you know about Maddie's daycare fees? I'll hit you with a final decision.
"They seem a little sensible. Then how much?"
$5. I don't get it sometimes. I examined their reactions, and ex-father-in-law stared at them. "Daddy didn't pay."
"What?"
"What? Daddy didn't pay." John's face turned from pale to white. "Does that mean your mom paid for John? That's why I was not getting fully?" My ex-father-in-law's face was red, like a volcano about to erupt. No, John was paying."
"Keep quiet, Maddie. I was paying. Don't say something strange."
"Secret?"
"Yes, that's a secret." "Secret."
My ex-father-in-law bursted like a volcano. The damage from the revealed lies was greater than I had anticipated. The table was overturned, glass shattered, and John's body flew through the air. My mother-in-law was crying and begging. Maddie was just staring blankly. Sasha went out for a walk, pretending not to notice. My husband hurried back from abroad, and chaos emerged as we began to sort things out. First, my mother-in-law was thrown out of our apartment. John started living with mother-in-law. Naturally, John was fired from his job for his affairs, and he struggled to find new employment. Burdened by rent, he was eventually evicted from the apartment and into a small apartment. My mother-in-law once came back to our place to retrieve forgotten items. "Maddie, you like me, don't you? You told me you don't like girls." My mother-in-law's face turned serious, and she stared at me. It confirmed my suspicions. My mother-in-law was a classic, fake, pretentious person. My phone rang. It was ex-father-in-law.
"Hello?"
My mother-in-law left at an astonishing speed, despite her usual fat appearance. Ex-father-in-law's fearsome reputation was evident. I heard that my mother-in-law got involved in a marriage scam, and John was being pursued by an ex-lover. I don't care about that anymore. I don't want to be involved with them again. I couldn't leave Maddie with John and mother-in-law. Eventually, Maddie became a member of our family. I was scared to suggest it because she had been so lonely and wouldn't open up. Maddie, would you like me to be your mom? Yes. I'm relieved. My husband flew off to another country again, busy as ever. Ex-father-in-law has started visiting us and Maddie is getting along well with him. I'm also happy to be pregnant with a baby boy, but now I'm fine with having a girl too. What would you like for dinner, Maddie? Hamburgers or fries? Fries! Maddie used to eat fries frequently when she lived with John. She likes fries and rolled meat. I'm amazed. It seems she missed having fries for a while. Is salad okay? Yes! It's nice to see her smile like that. Growing up healthy with Maddie, Sasha, and ex-father-in-law around. I wonder if my husband is still working with his hammer. My due date is December. It seems my husband will return to America by then. Maybe we'll all celebrate Christmas together. Sasha meows and swags his tail. It seems the best part of life is just beginning.
Abandoned by my parents for my looks, my uncle took me in. 20 years later, as a successful CEO, my parents came back.
My name is Allison, and it was named after my grandmother. My twin sister Ashley was named after my aunt. Although we are twins, we are fraternal, and while our eyes are similar, there is one feature that sets us apart: our noses. Compared to Ashley's, my nose is flat and low. My parents, who placed great importance on appearance, seemed to dislike this about me, and as a result, there are very few photos of me from my childhood. In contrast, there are enough photos of Ashley to fill several albums. I felt the difference in love and attention between Ashley and me, believing that one day someone would love me for who I was. But when my mother Emily made a direct comment about my appearance, it was when I was 18 months old during a medical checkup. She apparently took the opportunity to ask the doctor if my nose would ever grow taller. Unhappy with the answer, she complained about it under her breath even after returning home.
They said low noses are normal, but how could anyone think this nose is cute? That doctor is crazy.
I couldn't respond, but I understood the meaning behind her words. My mother didn't like me. If I had been weaker, I might have been devastated and closed off, but I was surprisingly positive. It's okay because I know I'm cute. A few years later, when I was 3, we started kindergarten. While Ashley was popular, I was teased by the kids in our class. By then, Ashley had absorbed our parents' views and started to exclude me as well.
I'm not going to play with someone with a weird nose. Mom said I shouldn't.
With that, she would play with the other kids, glancing at me to show off how much fun she was having. Some might wonder why no adults intervened, but Ashley would cling to my arm and pretend to be a loving sister whenever the teacher was around, so no one realized what was happening. Maybe some adults noticed, but chose to ignore it. But Ashley's acting was so convincing that no one suspected a thing. Despite everything, I didn't mind. I never thought my nose was strange. In fact, I thought it was small and cute. It functioned as a nose should, and just because it was lower didn't mean I was any less myself. I thought it was scarier if everyone's noses were the same height, like dolls. But it seemed I was the only one who thought that way. Other kids teased me because Ashley said my nose was weird, and they just went along with it. When I asked why, they said it was because Ashley says so, or because their parents said so. In other words, they didn't have a reason of their own. They just repeated what they heard from others. Even though I couldn't put it into words, I felt their way of thinking was strange. Maybe when I grew up, I'd be able to explain this feeling better. Despite the situation at kindergarten, it was still more comfortable than being at home, where I was treated as if I didn't exist. Ashley was always the priority, and I was always an afterthought. I can't recall ever being praised, even when discussing our dreams for the future.
I want to be a princess when I grow up.
Well, Ashley is already our princess.
Yes, Ashley is our princess.
I want to be a princess too.
Allison, that's impossible. You'll never be a princess. Everyone would run away.
Don't dream about things that can't come true. Give up like your father says.
Looking back now, I realize how cruel they were to say such things to a young child. Words can hurt deeply, even if they're true. But I wasn't hurt because I believed that people ran away because I was too attractive for them to handle. I thought maybe I wasn't meant to be a princess, but rather someone who helps other women become princesses. I started to think about my future in a different way. I could be like a fairy godmother in a story helping others. Then one day I came across a picture book that changed my life. Ashley received it from an older girl at kindergarten but didn't like it.
This isn't what I wanted. I don't need this.
She shoved it into my bookcase, which was actually her old hand-me-downs. The picture book was a coloring book intended for children aged 4 and up. It involved using makeups-like materials to color in a girl's face, transforming her appearance with just a few strokes. It was like magic. That was when my interest in makeup began. But I couldn't tell my parents. They would surely disapprove. Despite saying that kindergarten was more comfortable, there were still at certain times when I felt at ease even at home. That was when my uncle and his wife, Jason and Heather, visited. Jason, who was my father's older brother, and Heather would make time to visit us regularly. What I remember most is how they treated Ashley and me equally. They gave us the same toys, spent the same amount of Christmas presents, and never showed favoritism. I enjoyed being with them more than with my own family and even wished they were my real parents. Little did I know that my wish would come true. One year, they came to our house for New Year's. They were planning to stay for a few days since they had some time off work. I was thrilled to have them around for longer than usual and stuck close to them the whole time. Ashley, on the other hand, watched us from a distance, looking resentful. That's because my parents always believed Ashley's lies about me being mean to her, but my aunt and uncle didn't fall for it.
If you keep lying like that, you'll lose something important. Stop doing shameful things. Nobody likes lies.
Look at Allison's good points. Ever since my uncle scolded her, Ashley saw them as difficult adults and stayed close to our parents instead. Meanwhile, I stayed close to my uncle and aunt, who watched over us as they chatted and drank. But the alcohol removed my parents' inhibitions. Normally, they would never talk about my appearance in front of others, especially not my uncle and aunt, but that day, they did.
Who would want an ugly daughter like this?
Ashley's so cute, so why did we end up with one like this?
My parents and Ashley laughed, but my uncle and aunt stopped eating, their faces turning serious. The atmosphere turned tense. My father seemed to realize his mistake and tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. Ignoring him, my uncle exchanged a glance with Heather, then stood up.
You haven't changed at all. I thought becoming a parent might have changed you, but I'm disappointed. Hey, there's no need to talk like that. We're just stating facts, right, Ashley?
Yeah, it's Allison's fault for being ugly and having a weird nose.
If you don't want her, I'll take her.
Allison, would you like to live with us? Yes, I want to live with you guys. I answered immediately without hesitation. My father's face turned even redder as he realized I wasn't going to stay. Maybe he expected me to choose to stay, hoping for their love. But even I, who had waited for their love, had no intention of staying after being told I wasn't wanted.
Do whatever you want, but don't come back. You're not our child anymore.
You'll regret it,
my mother said from behind my father. If she was going to hide, she shouldn't have said anything at all. But I was too excited about living with my uncle and aunt to really hear her words. I packed my favorite books into my backpack and went with them. It was a hectic new year, but undoubtedly the best start to a year I've ever had. I didn't understand the complicated words that were exchanged, but I later learned that they went through a special adoption process to make me their legal child. My uncle and aunt officially became my adoptive parents. It felt like a dream come true, and for weeks after becoming their child, I would wake up every morning and ask them to confirm that it was real. I'm really your child now, right? My adoptive parents never got tired of reassuring me.
Yes, you're our child now.
As those words warmed my heart, I gradually became comfortable calling them Mom and Dad. Since it would be awkward to continue attending the same kindergarten as Ashley, I transferred to a new one. Surprisingly, no one at my new kindergarten teased me about my nose. Even though I joined midway through the year, none of the kids asked about it, and I later learned that the teacher had prepared them in advance. The children warmly welcomed me and showed me around the kindergarten. Perhaps they were excited to act as guys, feeling like older siblings. Having often been isolated before, I was thrilled to be accepted so openly. I spent the rest of my time there feeling as if I had always been a part of the group. Thanks to the loving care of my adoptive parents and the new environment, I grew up happily and healthily. Time passed, and I went from elementary school to junior high, and then on to high school. When it came time to choose my future path, my adoptive mother told me I could pursue any field I wanted. I had a dream in mind, but concerns about money and other factors held me back.
If you don't want to do it, that's okay. But don't hold back if it's something you want. It's better to try and regret it than not try at all.
Her words gave me the push I needed to pursue my dream. I decided to attend a university that was close to home. I enrolled in a pharmacy program, both to achieve my dream and to become a licensed pharmacist. After 6 years of study and passing the exam, I secured a job in the development department of a cosmetics company. After becoming a working adult, I finally gathered the courage to ask my adoptive parents why they chose to adopt me. Surely they could have adopted another child. I was happy to be their daughter, but I worried that I might have been a burden. When I asked, my adoptive father seemed surprised and patted my head.
Why would you think that, Allison? Don't worry about that. We're the ones who asked you to live with us. You may be an adult now, but you're still our child.
Seeing my expression, he smiled, understanding that for parents, their children are always children, no matter how old they get.
Actually, I had a low nose when I was young, just like you. It was a big insecurity for me. I worked hard in school and sports to compensate, but my father always put me down because of my nose. He mocked me just like Ashley used to mock you. He kept teasing me until my nose finally grew during puberty. But when I introduced your mother, he suddenly stopped. After moving out and starting my own life, I met different people and realized that the world is full of different opinions. Your mother helped me build my self-confidence.
They really were meant to be together like a couple connected by the red string of fate.
I couldn't just stand by and let you suffer in that environment. I thought if only our home could be your sanctuary. I also couldn't have children, which was something that troubled your grandfather. Jason remembered how much I wanted children, even though I had accepted it wouldn't happen for us. He must have known me better than I knew myself.
Are you sure you don't regret making me your child?
Of course not. You're our treasure. We would never regret it.
As she hugged me, tears of happiness welled up in my eyes. I was so glad to be their child. As I held their hands, I thought back to the little girl I once was, never imagining that I would end up as their daughter. I was standing at a crossroads in life, and the path I chose led me to a fulfilling life. Now I work hard every day and enjoy it. But my adoptive parents worry that I never talk about romance. I've been focused on my career, studying makeup that suits me, and maybe that's why I'm more popular with women than men. Although I've been a confidant and matchmaker many times, I haven't found a romantic partner myself. I even lived with someone once, but we parted ways amicably. We're still good friends, and his straightforward advice from a male perspective has been invaluable to me. He taught me that it's okay not to be obsessed with marriage. Since becoming their adoptive daughter, I've faced many challenges, but I've become the president of a cosmetics company. We create custom-made cosmetics tailored to each customer's skin. Our products are gender neutral, designed for everyone. We also offer ongoing support to help our customers adjust to changes in their skin over time. We plan to expand into skincare, soaps, and hair care products in the future. Recently, I was interviewed as a successful female entrepreneur leading a company with an annual turnover of $10 million. The road hasn't been easy, but I'm glad I never gave up. Without the support of my team, including that friend of mine, I wouldn't have achieved my dream. And most importantly, I couldn't have done it without the encouragement of my adoptive parents. They pushed me to go to college, or else my dream would have remained just that, a dream. I was determined to work hard, grateful for all the help I'd received. But then, an unexpected visitor came to my office, threatening to undermine that resolve. It was my biological parents, and Ashley, all three of them, who showed up unannounced, begging for help. At first, I didn't recognize them and considered sending them away, but then Ashley spoke up.
It's me, your cute little sister. Did you forget me?
It's been a long time. What brings you here without any prior notice?
We're your parents. Do we need to make an appointment to visit our daughter?
Just hear us out. It won't take long.
Although I was appalled by their audacity, I knew I had to get rid of them quickly. I ushered them into a private room where they immediately started talking without waiting for my response.
I graduated from a great university and met a wonderful man at my job. We're about to get married, but I tried a beauty regimen I found online, and now my face is burned.
They looked at me expectantly, but I didn't know what to do. Like food, cosmetics have expiration dates. Even if a doctor or specialist prescribes something, it's dangerous to use products that don't suit your skin. How could they not understand that? Before coming here, they should have gone to a hospital. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. I recommend that you see a doctor as soon as possible. As I calmly told them this, my biological father grabbed my arm to stop me from leaving.
She's about to get married, but she can't with her face like this. Do something.
Your father's right. Just put some makeup on her. You're the president. You can do that much, can't you?
I do have makeup for covering scars, and I can't help until she's treated by a doctor. Please go to the hospital immediately.
You're just jealous that I'm getting married first and to a rich man. You're being stingy and taking revenge on me. You're the worst sister ever. I'm finally going to be a rich bride, so stop getting in my way.
Ashley's accusations were absurd. I had no interest in ruining her life, and I wasn't jealous. In fact, if they hadn't barged in, I would never have seen them again. I had no ill will, but Ashley's baseless rants were exhausting. I decided it was best to ask them to leave. They were eventually escorted out by security, but the next day they became infamous. An employee had recorded the entire exchange and sent it to a TV station. The news aired, condemning them for their behavior. My biological parents were being criticized for how they treated me, and Ashley was criticized for not defending her sister. Even with their faces blurred, people recognized them. I had mentioned my adopted parents in interviews, but had never talked about my biological parents and sister because I considered them irrelevant. I thought it was better to remain silent, but this situation made it clear that silence only fueled speculation. Now reporters were swarming the house where I spent my early childhood. I posted a video on my social media apologizing for the inconvenience this was causing and asking for understanding. I didn't want to add fuel to the fire, so I said as little as possible, hoping the situation would calm down soon. I felt sorry for my employees and the people in my old neighborhood. A phone call from my neighbor saved me from my despair. The caller was someone who had cared for me when I was young, often scolding my biological parents for how they treated me. She was also close to my adopted mother, and they still kept in touch.
This isn't your fault. Those people are getting what they deserve.
My neighbor told me that my biological parents who used to parade Ashley around were now avoiding attention and arguing loudly at home.
They blamed each other, saying Ashley shouldn't have tried such a dangerous beauty regimen without doing her research. Ashley retorted that it was their fault for pressuring her to improve her appearance.
Apparently, Ashley had been full of energy until her fiancé messaged her, telling her that he didn't want to marry her anymore because his love wasn't based on her appearance. Their engagement was called off, and she realized too late that she had truly loved him. After that, Ashley shut herself in her room, and my biological mother started calling my office, demanding to speak to me. I had to deal with her constant complaints about how I had ruined everything. No matter how much I questioned it, she insisted it was all my fault. Finally, I grew tired of the nonsense. You're the ones who showed up and caused a scene. If anyone should be paying compensation, it's you, not me. Maybe we should involve a lawyer.
A lawyer? That's unnecessary. Just tell everyone the reports are lies.
You're not my family, so don't contact me again. The next time we meet, it'll be in court. She hung up the phone abruptly. She must have realized what would happen if they continued to cause trouble. I was relieved they backed off because I didn't want to waste my time on a lawsuit. I was busy with new product development, and I was glad they didn't pursue it further. After that, I didn't hear from them again, and it seemed like I was finally free from them. My adoptive father kept my biological father's contact information, but he decided to cut ties with him after this incident.
I always hoped they would change and apologize, but it seems they only caused trouble.
He was a kind person, but he wouldn't forgive someone who caused trouble for his daughter's company. Even a saint doesn't offer endless chances for redemption. My biological father's mistakes had deepened the rift between him and my adoptive father, a rift that would likely never heal. Sadly, Ashley grew up exactly as our parents wanted, too focused on appearance to recognize what truly matters. I hope she'll reflect on herself after this heartbreak and learn to see things differently, but that's up to her. I always read the feedback we receive from our customers, even though I'm busy. Recently, I received a letter thanking us for helping them regain confidence in their appearance. Some customers send emails through our website, but I also appreciate handwritten letters for their warmth. Our entire staff reads them gratefully. But I want our customers to know that the effort was theirs. Our cosmetics just provided a little help. I encourage people to find their own unique beauty without conforming to society's standards. My team and I, each with our own distinct qualities, work together to create products that embrace individuality. Some of our employees are still learning to love themselves, but I believe that our differences make us beautiful. I hope to continue developing cosmetics that can support and uplift those who are struggling with self-acceptance.
After 10 years of mistreatment, I divorced. When my brother-in-law arrived, my husband and mother-in-law crumbled in shock.
Get out, parasite. After 10 years of enduring my mother's abuse, I've had enough. I'm divorcing you.
His sudden words left me stunned. Was he calling me a parasite? That's such a horrible thing to say. Then his mother chimed in, her voice full of anger.
Pay back all the money you've cost us and get out.
I had no intention of asking for alimony in this divorce. I just wanted to end things peacefully. But hearing her say that made me realize how much I had endured all these years. I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to take action. When they learned the shocking truth, both Mike and his mother collapsed to their knees. My name is Sarah. I'm 36 years old and currently live with my husband Mike, who is 2 years younger than me, and my mother-in-law Lisa. I met Mike at work. He was a new hire at the company where I worked. Despite being new, Mike easily handled difficult tasks, and I found myself falling for him. I had never been the type to approach men, but Mike was different. I wanted to know more about him, so I started talking to him more and going out for drinks together. Before long, we became a couple and started living together. Every day with Mike was nothing but happiness. That happiness only grew when he proposed to me. Of course, I said yes. We got married and began our life together, planning to build a happy home. Little did I know that hellish days awaited me.
Hey, starting next week, my mom is moving in with us.
His sudden announcement caught me off guard. What? Isn't that a bit too soon? I loved my husband and wanted to support him in any way I could, but I couldn't understand why we were moving in with his mom after he had promised to build a new life with just the two of us. Mike explained sternly.
My mom raised me all by herself. Who else is going to take care of her, if not me? You know she has bad legs, right? She's been having more trouble lately, and I'm worried about her living alone.
I knew that Mike's parents had divorced when he was young and his mom raised him and his brother alone. I also lost my father to illness to a young age, so I understood Mike's feelings. With no room to argue, I reluctantly agreed to let his mom move in. Mike started packing our things right away.
The house isn't very big, so we can't bring much stuff.
I packed our belongings as compactly as possible and we moved into his mom's place. The house was a small apartment, just as Mike had said. Despite my worries, I was hopeful about starting a new life. But as soon as I walked through the door, I realized things wouldn't go so smoothly.
Welcome to my home. It's hot outside, isn't it? Come in and have something cold to drink.
She didn't even look at me and instead helped Mike with his bags.
Mom, you shouldn't strain yourself with your bad legs.
Ignoring me, she handed me my bags and helped her son.
I'm sorry for causing you so much worry. Mike's bags go in the back room and your things go in the front room.
I wondered why we were putting our things in separate rooms, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I did as I was told and returned to the living room, where Mike and his mom were chatting happily at the table. I wanted to sit with them, but there were only 2 chairs, and nothing had been set up for me. So I knelt on the floor near the table. I figured there were only 2 chairs because his mom had been living alone for so long. I stood up to get myself a drink, since it was such a hot day. But I hesitated, thinking it would be rude to help myself without asking. I politely asked, "Is it okay if I get something to drink?" Her response was unexpected.
There are paper cups in that drawer. You can use those and drink tap water.
I was puzzled. Mike and his mom were drinking cold iced tea from glasses, but she expected me to drink tap water from a paper cup? Was she already starting to treat me poorly because I was the daughter-in-law? I brushed off the thought and did as she said. As I sat on the floor drinking tap water, Lisa said something shocking.
Since you're here now, you can make dinner. I'll take a break, and Mike can lie down, because he must be tired too.
I couldn't believe my ears. Was she really expecting me to cook by myself? I was just as tired as Mike, but I figured I had to listen to her since I was the daughter-in-law. Then she dropped another bombshell.
Mike will sleep in the back room, and you can use the front room off the living room.
What? I was shocked. Did she really expect us as a married couple to sleep in separate rooms? I looked at Mike for support, but he just shrugged and started nodding in agreement with his mom.
Mom's right. It's better this way.
I was stunned. The man I thought would be my greatest ally was siding with his mother.
Mike, let's go out to eat. I'm not eating this garbage. There's a new sushi place nearby.
Sure, let's go.
They left and I sat alone at the table eating the food I had made. I wondered if she had planned to eat out all along since she was fully dressed and wearing makeup. The tears flowed freely as I realized how I had been mistreated. I couldn't believe Mike didn't stand up for me. How could I ever be happy living here? As I was lost in thought, the doorbell rang. I wiped my tears and rushed to open the door. To my surprise, it was Mike's older brother, James. He looked at me curiously.
What's wrong? Did something happen?
No, nothing. What brings you here today? He showed me a cake box he was holding.
I heard you moved in, so I brought a housewarming gift.
Thanks. I let James in, and he was surprised to see the spread of food on the table.
Wow, that's quite a feast. I never knew you could cook like this. It looks delicious.
James said the food looked good, even though Mike and his mom had said it looked awful. He looked confused, seeing me cry. Actually, James was a classmate of mine in high school. We bonded over both losing our fathers, and we became close friends. I was shocked when I found out I was marrying into his family.
Why are you crying all of a sudden?
I told him everything. James sighed and began to share a truth I hadn't known.
I was married last year, but I got divorced quickly. It was because of Mom. My wife couldn't stand the way she treated her, so we ended up getting divorced.
I was speechless. I had heard that James had been married before, but never knew the reason for his divorce. I wiped my tears and handed him a fork. This food will go to waste, so why don't you help me eat it? James happily ate the food I had made.
This is delicious. Mom and Mike are crazy for not eating it. If you ever need to talk, I'm here for you.
James left after leaving the cake on the table. Thanks to him, I felt a bit better. I decided to eat some of the cake while waiting for Mike and his mom to return. The cake had enough slices for everyone, but I took one for myself. James had picked a strawberry cake with fresh cream, knowing I didn't like chocolate. As I enjoyed the cake, I heard voices at the door. Mike and his mom had finally come back.
The sushi was delicious. We should go again.
Yeah, let's do that.
Then his mom noticed the food still on the table.
The food is still out. You should throw it away since no one is going to eat it.
I couldn't believe she would say such a thing about the food I had worked so hard to make. Mike said, with his shoulders slumped.
Thanks for cooking. I appreciate it.
His word meant nothing to me at this point. As I started clearing the table, his mom said something unbelievable.
It's unfair that you ate cake by yourself. Why didn't you think of others?
This is the moment I realized she was the selfish one, not me. James brought the cake. There's more in the fridge, so feel free to have some. I began cleaning up. From that day on, my life became a living hell. Before getting married, Mike had asked me to quit my job and become a housewife. So I did, but now I was stuck doing all the housework for Lisa. It was overwhelming, and when I asked Mike for help, he just laughed it off.
Mom has bad legs, so it's only natural for the housewife to do all the work.
Even though his mom had lived alone before moving in with us, she never lifted a finger to help. I begged her to share the chores, but she wouldn't even listen. She criticized everything I did.
You're not doing the laundry correctly. Do it over.
I had no choice but to redo it the way she wanted. She even criticized my cooking, though she never helped.
Ugh, this tastes awful. Make it again.
I had to redo meals multiple times until she was satisfied. As the daughter-in-law, I had no choice but to obey. Mike saw everything but never stood up for me. He was completely on his mom's side. The only person who supported me was James. After seeing me cry that day, James started visiting whenever Mike and his mom were out. James had distanced himself from the family after his divorce because he blamed his mom, and Mike took her side. But now he was worried I'd become the next victim, so he checked in on me whenever he could. Talking to him made me feel less alone. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye, and things only got worse. The way Mike's mom treated me became more unbearable. One day I decided to talk to Mike and his mom about something important. I want to go to nursing school. I've always wanted to help people, and I won't neglect my household duties. I had dreamed of becoming a nurse before getting married. For the past 10 years, I have been so busy with housework that I almost gave up on my dream, but I couldn't let it go, so I decided to ask them. I was confident that I could handle both school and housework, but their response was unexpected.
Are you crazy? At your age, you'll never get into nursing school. And how do you plan to pay for it?
I expected them to say that, but I had a surprise for them. Actually, I've already been accepted into nursing school. I'm going to use the money my father left me so I won't be a burden. They both looked shocked.
You never told us your dad left you money.
I didn't think it was necessary to mention it. Their faces darkened.
I don't care if you've been accepted. I'm not letting you go. If you want to go that badly, do it in your next life. Now give us your dad's money.
What? I couldn't believe she wanted to take my father's money from me. That money is important to me. I'm not giving it to you. I left the room and continued with the housework. Telling them about nursing school was a mistake. How could I have married into this family? I regretted marrying Mike and decided it was time to leave. I couldn't live with Mike and his mom any longer without losing my sanity. I had to get away from them. The next day I handed Mike the divorce papers. He took them without saying a word. I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. His face remained expressionless, and he simply said,
Fine, I'll file the papers.
Then he went back to his room. After 10 years together, he didn't even try to stop me. I realized then that I had no attachment to this house. I was just another woman to him. I couldn't stand it any longer. I packed a few clothes and left the house. I went to my mother's place and told her everything. I decided to stay with her for a while. At first, I wasn't sure if I had made the right decision, but living without Mike and his mom was so freeing. I realized how much they had controlled my life. A few days later, I received a call from Mike saying the divorce was final. I felt a sense of relief, knowing I could finally start over. But first, I had to go back and get the things I had left behind. I dreaded going back, but I had no choice. When I arrived, Mike's mom answered the door with a scowl. I told her I was there to pick up my things. She sighed, but let me in. I went to my room and opened the dresser where I had hidden something important, but it was gone. I was sure I had put it there. I searched frantically, but couldn't find it. Panic set in, and I shouted, Excuse me, do you know what happened to the money I had in here? It was the inheritance my father had left me. I planned to use it for nursing school. Mike and his mom exchanged smug looks. I had a bad feeling about this.
We used that money because we've let you live here all these years.
I was stunned. No, that money was left to me by my father, I shouted, gathering all my strength.
Too bad, it's already gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. We were thinking of buying a new car, so thanks for that.
I was speechless. Mike then yelled at me.
How long are you planning to stay here? We're divorced now, so you're just a parasite. Get out.
Was he really calling me a parasite? That was too much. Then his mom added her own insults.
Pay back all the money we spent on you. You've been living off us all this time.
But didn't you just use my dad's inheritance to buy a new car? Her face turned beet red at my words.
That's different. You're so shameless to think it's the same. We've put up with you long enough, so it's only fair.
Why should I have to pay them? I felt a surge of anger like an electric shock through my body.
Since you were the one who asked for the divorce, we're not paying any alimony.
I had no intention of asking for alimony. I just wanted to end things peacefully. But now I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything I had endured, they even took my father's inheritance. I couldn't take it anymore. Fine, I'll pack my things and leave. I pretended to pack while secretly calling someone. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Mike's mom got up with a scowl.
Who could it be at such a busy time?
When she opened the door, she was surprised to see James standing there in his police uniform. Yes, James was a police officer. He looked at me and said,
I'm here to pick you up. There's a car waiting outside.
He took my bags, and Mike's eyes widened in shock.
What's going on? Why is James here to pick you up? Aren't you on duty?
Sarah, you're shameless for involving James in this. How could you use him like this?
He took a deep breath and said,
This is part of my job.
What? She's using you, James. Wake up.
My brother's job is to pick up my ex-wife? That's ridiculous. Do some real police work and go catch criminals.
Yes, stop wasting time here and go catch bad guys.
He looked serious as he said,
That's exactly why I'm here. To catch criminals.
What are you talking about? There are no criminals here.
There are 2 criminals right in front of me.
Their faces turned pale as they realized he was talking about them.
You're making it sound like we did something wrong.
Didn't you?
I nodded. You stole my money. It was my father's inheritance. Mike started laughing.
We didn't steal anything. Even if we did, you can't prosecute family members.
I couldn't help but laugh at his ignorance.
What's so funny? You're trying to make us the villains, but it won't work. I studied law in college, so I know the police can't get involved in family disputes. You're the one who doesn't know anything.
Yeah, Sarah doesn't have the brains to understand that.
I decided to set the record straight. What are you talking about? We're not family anymore. We're divorced and living separately. We're strangers now. James raised his voice to back me up.
Since the divorce is finalized, you both can be prosecuted for theft. You're looking at up to 10 years in prison or a fine of up to $50,000.
They both started to panic, their earlier arrogance gone.
Arrested? How could this happen? Sarah, you're not serious, right?
I'm dead serious. Stealing is a crime. We learned that as kids, didn't we? Lisa started crying.
Come on, Sarah. Can't you forgive us? Mom's crying.
He spoke as if it didn't concern him. as if he wasn't also guilty. You're just as guilty as she is. Don't forget that the car you bought was with my money. I know because one of your friends told me. The purchase was made the day after our divorce was finalized. Mike started trembling at my words.
How can I avoid getting arrested? If I get arrested, I'll lose my job. The only way is if Sarah drops the charges.
Lisa suddenly changed her tone.
Sarah, I'm really sorry for everything. I'm sure we can work things out and have a good relationship.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're strangers now. There's no need for a relationship. Mike said something even more ridiculous.
Yeah, we used to get along well. Let's start over. Let's give it another try.
I couldn't believe my ears. I had to speak up. What are you talking about? I have no love left for you. There's no way we're getting back together. If you don't want to be prosecuted, then pay back the money you took. Lisa turned to Mike and said,
I think she's serious. We'll have to pay her back. You've been saving up, right? You have the money, don't you?
Mike's face turned sour, and there was a long silence. James then dropped a bombshell.
Of course, he doesn't have the money. He spent it on his mistress. If he had the money, he wouldn't have needed to buy a car with Sarah's money.
Lisa looked shocked, clearly unaware.
How do you know about that? You were walking around town with your mistress in broad daylight. It was hard to miss, especially when you went into a luxury brand store together.
Mike was too stunned to respond. How could you say you want to start over with me when you've been lying to me this whole time? I had known about his affair for a year. James had spotted him while on patrol and reported it to me. After the initial shock wore off, I stopped caring. When Mike's mom heard this, she exploded in anger.
How could you do this, Mike? That savings included my retirement money.
Mike was now being blamed by everyone. I had nothing left to say to him. Mike and his mom collapsed to their knees, speechless. James put me in his patrol car, and the three of us were taken to the police station for questioning. My questioning was brief, but they spent the entire day being interrogated. It turned out there were more crimes they had committed, including scamming multiple women out of money. I knew Mike had a mistress, but never imagined he was conning other women. He even spent the stolen money on another mistress. I had always known Mike was selfish, but I felt truly sorry for the women who had been hurt by him. After that, I agreed to a settlement with Mike and his mom, including repayment of the stolen money and alimony for the affair. They both signed the agreement, closing the chapter of my life. But even though I forgave them, society did not. Mike's affair and theft were exposed at his company, and he was forced to quit. Now he spends his days at home, playing video games, a shadow of his former self. His mom, needing money, started working, but her bad legs made it difficult to keep a job. What goes around comes around, I thought. Now they would experience the suffering I had endured all these years. As for me, I finally enrolled in nursing school after the divorce. It's not easy pursuing my dream at this age, but I'm determined to make it happen. James and I still keep in touch. Since that day, he cut ties with Mike and his mom and stayed by my side to help me heal. I can't get back the 10 years I lost, but I'm sure the next 10 years will be brighter. I'm going to move forward and live a happy life.